Scanning. Identity authorized. Welcome to the Secret Superhero Club Podcast Network.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 187 of the Animation Station podcast. My name is Josh, and today I am joined by a very special guest, the wonderful actress Tiffany Grant. How are you doing, Tiffany?
Hi there, Josh. I'm doing great.
So if you wouldn't mind, just for, maybe some of our listeners who may not be familiar with your work, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm Tiffany Grant. I'm a voice actor working primarily in anime, and I've been doing that for a little over 25 years now. Some of the better-known titles that I've worked on, Neon Genesis Evangelion, where I was Asuka. I was Nojiko, that's Nami's sister, in One Piece. I played Marta, the snake chimera, in Full Metal Alchemist. She's the one who meets her demise at the hands of the Fuhrer inside of Alphonse's suit of armor. That always kind of brings it into focus for people. Oh, she was that one. I was Laura Bodevig in Infinite Stratos, and I've done several hundred other shows as well, and some video games too. Paladins,
yeah, definitely.
Smite, Deus Ex 2. Recently worked on something I think is going to be really cool for people is Once Upon a Coma from the creator of Pinstripe. I'm very excited about that one.
Nice. So let's kind of go. We're gonna go back in time as I whack my microphone.
Okay.
We're gonna go back. I did it again. We're gonna go back in time. So what was little Tiffany like as a child?
Oh well.
What were you into? Like, were you that class clown kid? Like, what was little Tiff running around?
Little Tiff was very little. I was tiny. I mean, I'm still tiny. So people, if you've never met me in person, I'm a very tiny person. I'm just like barely 5 feet tall. So I'm a little. I refer to myself sometimes as like a trial-sized person. You know, if you're new to human beings and you just want to try out like a small one, I would be that like trial-sized person. Or travel-sized. I'm really good at being travel-sized, which is good because I travel a lot. But anyway, I was always like the tiniest person in the class. I always, I think, knew that I was an actor. I like to refer to acting as a congenital condition. It's sort of like a birth defect that you're born with, and there's no cure for it. Mm-hmm. So it's something that was always in my mind, that not like I am going to become an actor or I'm going to someday be an actor, but that like I am born as this. So my first school play was in second grade. It was The Shoemaker and the Elves. I was an elf, and I can remember how exciting that was to be in that play, and I was like 7. When I was about 9 years old, I got this little Sony tape recorder, and I would write sketches and perform all these different characters. And sometimes I would get my friends or my cousin Helen to record and play these different characters. I would write these sketches out for us. And sometimes it was more like an outline and we would just kind of improv it. But I loved doing that. Also, when I was a kid, my cousin Helen and I had our own variety show, kind of inspired by variety shows were very popular in the 70s. So ours was kind of based on like a Carol Burnett show, Sonny and Cher, things of that era, which hopefully some people listening to this know what I'm talking about. But it was, very much inspired by those variety shows, and we would write the sketches and even do like little fake commercials in there, and we would have song and dance numbers with like very, very minimalistic choreography. So that was kind of me. That was my thing, I had a pretty active imagination.
So was there anything growing up that you really like kind of resonated towards? Like, was there like a movie, TV show, certain,
Oh, yes, very much. So when I was really small, some of my favorite TV shows, which is kind of interesting considering the way my career went, but two of my particular favorites when I was very young were Speed Racer and Ultraman. And both of those, the English language versions, were written, directed, produced by the legendary Peter Fernandez, who many years later I got to meet when I started doing conventions, and he was delightful, really wonderful man. So those were some of my favorites. Also really liked Popeye. But my big hero when I was a kid and well into my adulthood was a very prolific and well-known entertainer, Bob Hope. And he really succeeded in every facet of show business. When he was young, he started out in vaudeville and became a very successful, well-known vaudeville performer. He appeared on Broadway, and then he transitioned into having a radio show, which ran for, I don't know, probably close to 20 years. He was in television. He did films that were like really big box office successes, and so when I was growing up, I was very fixated on Bob Hope, like obsessed with him and watching all of his movies, reading all of his books. Every time one of his TV specials came on, and one of the things that he was most famous for now would probably be the fact that he entertained the troops. He was basically
I was just thinking like the USO stuff. Yeah.
Exactly. He was basically the progenitor of the USO. He was asked to go and entertain some troops at March Field in California back in 1941, and this is before the attack on Pearl Harbor. So he had already entertained the troops, and then when the war started, it was just very natural for him to transition into going overseas. And he was a little bit older when World War II started. He was 38, and it was a little older than, there were a lot of famous movie stars and celebrities like Clark Gable and Jimmy Stewart and so forth who did enlist, and they did go into the military, and they did fight in World War II. But he was told, no, we think that you would be of better service to the country if you would entertain the troops, and that's what he did. And he did it starting in, actually right before we entered World War II, and then all the way through the Korean conflict, the Vietnam War, and even until the first Gulf War in the 90s, he was still entertaining the troops. So that's really incredible, all of that he did. Anyway, so yeah, he was my hero.
And you're from Houston, correct?
I am.
I was trying to remember from your Ladies in Animation panel at Anime Week in Atlanta. I was like, I thought she said that she was from Houston.
Yes, I'm a bona fide native Houstonian, and that is where I started my acting career and where most of it occurred in Houston. I did work actually a fair amount up in the Dallas area for Funimation as well, but yeah, most of I now based in the Atlanta area, but most of my acting career has taken place in Texas and mostly there in the Houston area.
So if you don't mind me asking, why the move to Atlanta?
Well,
is that a bit too personal?
No. It's aspirational for people who are not aware. If you don't stay to the end of the movie or watch the end of your TV show, you might not see that Made in Georgia, that peach logo. I think for the last 3 years, and it might be 4 now, Georgia is actually the #1 location in the world for film and television production. So this is kind of where stuff is happening, and I was doing like sort of a reinvention of myself. This is my second act or my third act or whatever act it is, and reinvention of Tiff. I thought, let's try Atlanta. So here I am, and trying to see what's going to happen there. I've been here for about a little over a year and a half now.
Is the voiceover area, like, I know because I've had one of our previous guests, Amanda Miller. She went from Texas to California, and now she is she's also in Atlanta. And she was kind of telling us that it's a little bit harder with like the voiceover resume. Because it's a lot of on camera work. Have you found anything like that as well? Like, kind of like a hurdle with
Yes.
primarily doing voiceover?
Yeah, and for those people who don't know, I've done a fair bit, not a tremendous amount, especially not compared to voice acting, but I have done a fair bit of on-camera work over the years.
Okay.
But I just don't really have a passion for that, and I have gotten to a point in my life where I think I don't really have to do stuff that I'm not enjoying, So I honestly have no interest whatsoever. I mean, if I do some on-camera work, and again in the future, that's okay. But I don't really care about it at all, and certainly not actively pursuing that right now. I am finding it kind of difficult getting into the voice community here. So most of the work I'm really doing is online and finding work that way and using some of my previous connections from Texas. So, it's tough moving into a new market, and anybody who's in this business knows that. I mean, it's difficult. You can be really well known in one market, and I thought, oh gosh, I've been doing this for 25 years. I've got a lot of credentials. Surely it will be no problem. Well, a little bit trickier than I thought, but that's okay. I'm in it to win it, as I always say, and
yeah.
At this point, I'm useless for anything else. So this is what I'm doing. This is what I do. I always think, oh my gosh, if it doesn't work out, I'll be working in Target, but not quite yet.
Have you ever thought maybe going along the audiobook route?
I've looked into that, and I don't think it's for me.
Gotcha.
At least the opportunities that I have been aware of have paid so very badly, so very, very, very badly. And it really has to be something I think that you really want to do and focus on it. One of my really good friends, Chris Patton, who maybe a lot of your listeners will be familiar with, very prolific anime voice actor, but for several years there, he wasn't really doing much anime. That's because he was doing all of these like vampire teenage romance novels. He did a lot of audiobooks, and not just the vampire teenage romance stuff, but other things too. But he said, it's your entire life when you're doing it, and you don't have time to do other kinds of voice acting or go to conventions or, that is your life, just reading and reading and reading these books. And I don't think I have the patience for it. I mean, when I work on a project, if it's something that's more than like 10 finished minutes, that's a lot, because the stuff that I'm doing, and this would be very much the case with most of the audiobook work, is that you're doing it all on your own. So something that's 10 finished minutes, that might not sound like much to a lot of people, but that 10 minutes is a lot. You do not record that in 10 minutes. Let me tell you, you do not, because there's all the edits that you have to make, and like, I got to redo that line, and 10 finished minutes takes a while.
So we're gonna go back a little bit. So you were doing all kinds of stuff with. You said your cousin, correct?
Oh yes, my cousin Helen. Yeah, we had
Dear
the
Helen. Yeah,
the Helen and Tiffany show. Yeah. That was
so you were doing that when you were younger. You were in some school plays. How did that kind of transition into, I'm gonna make this a full-time career?
Yeah, well, I was active in theater all through school, up and through like middle school, high school, and then into college. Was still doing that. And then I was involved in community theater, which, is fun and can be artistically fulfilling depending on what theater companies you're working with. Some are obviously better than others. It doesn't pay anything. So you have to just be doing that because you enjoy it, and whatever you're getting out of that, like emotionally, spiritually, whatever. But I was actually doing that as a sideline. I wasn't doing acting as a career. That was a very much like in my spare time kind of thing. And I was actually working for the Kroger company as a meat buyer. And I thought, boy, this is not this is not what I want to be doing. And I really started thinking, like, I've got to figure out some way to break out of this rut. And I thought, man, I'm 25. I've really got to, get after it. And I was doing community theater, and I got a call just really out of the blue from a guy that I had known from junior high. And there was this brand new company that had started about a year and a half earlier in Houston, and it was called AD Vision, and they were going to start, they had released a few, just like a handful of titles of anime that was subtitled, and they were going to start dubbing anime into English, and they needed to find actors. And he said, yeah, they told me that they're doing this and they were looking for actors, and I remembered that you're an actor, so maybe you want to give them a call. And I thought, this is fantastic, because this was like sort of the culmination of everything that I had been thinking of like all those years before, making like different characters and stuff, recording that on my cassette player. So I called and I went down there and I auditioned, and I got hired, like on the spot. I got hired, which now with my years of knowledge and retrospection, I can say that's not a normal thing, that you get hired like immediately following your audition. But I did. And after I did that was my first paid acting job working in anime. And I said to my boss at Kroger, I said, I'm going to quit. And I got a job waiting tables at Steak and Ale. And because I thought, well, that's, it's like the classic acting job. But the reason is because it's got flexible hours and everything. Yeah. And, so that's what I did, is I quit that job, and they tried to entice me to stay. They were going to give me a little bit of a raise. And I was like, yeah, but that's not what would make me stay here. The thing is that I need is a flexible schedule, and you can't offer me that. And they said, no, we can't. Like, I had to be there every day from 9 o'clock until 5 o'clock, Monday through Friday. And that was the deal. So that was it. I mean, once I had my first paid acting job, I thought, this is it. I've got to pursue this. I've really got to focus on this. So I quit my office job and started waiting tables. And about a year later, I got a talent agent and started auditioning for different things, and got more involved in community theater, which again wasn't paying, but at least I was, sort of meeting other actors and things like that. And the anime stuff eventually started picking up. And I mean, that's really how it all happened. And the first community theater play that I did in Houston back in 1993, Kelly Manison was the director of the play, and she has subsequently gone on to have a rather amazing anime career. Another person who was in the play was Laura Chapman, who's another well-known anime actor. So, a lot of us were in that group. So it's kind of funny now. And I was actually doing a play. It was like right after that play, which was called The Clown Who Ran Away. And the play that I did after that was Alice in Wonderland. And it was during the production of Alice in Wonderland in February of 1994 that I actually went and did the audition with ADV. And so, community theater was good for me because I made friends there who I've ended up intersecting paths with, over the last 25 years. So some good relationships there that I made along the way. But that's how it all got started for me.
Nice. So you were kind of patient, and you did kind of wait for that more of that anime-esque boom, if you will, like that late 90s into the 2000s when it really started picking up over here.
Well, I mean, my professional acting career started in February of 1994, which was not in the late 90s, and there was no anime boom, and most people did not know what anime was in the February of 1994. I had never heard that word before I was working in anime. And when I would say anime to people, they had no idea what that was. This is before Sailor Moon. This is before Dragon Ball was on TV. There was no Toonami. There was no Adult Swim. I would have to relate it to people. I would say, it's like Speed Racer. Speed Racer was, and they go, oh, was that anime? Oh, okay. So people really did not know what that was at that time. And I can remember when I worked on my first show, it was called Guy Double Target. And I remember talking to Matt Greenfield, who directed that anime and many other animes of that in subsequent years. And he said, yeah, we think if we get this going, we might be able to do one of these every month. And I went, wow, one every month? That's amazing. And this was a 2-episode OVA. And it was actually a few months later that we went back, or probably several months later that it was, until we did the second project, which was actually Samurai Showdown, the motion picture. That was the second thing that we dubbed. And that was several months later. And then in 1995, that's when it really started rolling. In 1995, it just really kicked in, and then we actually really were dubbing something every month, and even more than one something a month. So it did pick up pretty quickly after that. But as soon as I got my first paid acting job, that was it. I was like, this is a sign. This is what I need to be pursuing. So that was when I really just was going for it, and waited tables for a while, did a little retail work in there as well. And then I went and worked at a talent agency, and I actually worked there for 8 years. So basically since probably since January of 96, all the only jobs that I have been showbiz related jobs, acting or working in a talent agency, whatever. They've all been industry related jobs. So for over 23 years now.
Nice. So I know we've got fans that are gonna be reminisce if I don't not reminisce. They're gonna be angry if we don't bring up Evangelion. So
really?
So how did that audition? So you go in for that audition. Did you originally go for Asuka, or did you just read for any of the characters that you could?
I never auditioned for Asuka. So
really?
I reject the premise of your question.
All right. Well, that's fair.
My audition for Asuka was the 2.5 to 3 years leading up to me appearing in Evangelion. My audition was all of the other characters that I played, like Komei Sawaguchi in Blue Seed. And so I was the one main cast member who never auditioned. There were auditions for all of the other roles, Rei, Misato, Ritsuko, a lot of auditions for Shinji. There were women considered for the role. I did not audition for that. I didn't audition for anything in Evangelion at all. So I back then we would record 2 episodes at a time, because that's what would come out on a VHS tape. So VHS tapes had 2 episodes, so that was all that would be produced at one time, was 2 episodes, because that was what was going to be released. So,
I remember all about those VHSs.
Yeah.
I bought mine at they were white. I bought mine at because anime conventions weren't really a thing, really,
right.
Especially because I'm from Oklahoma. So not a lot there, but we did have a Star Trek convention every year. And that's where you would go, because they would have Star Trek stuff and all kinds of other, types of genres and everything. And then there would be a little booth that would sell anime stuff. And I bought, I want to say, like 6 VHS copies of Evangelion, so I got like 12 episodes,
Oh,
and then I was
okay.
never able to get any more.
Oh, no.
So it was one of those, like, I never knew how it ended until
Oh.
years later.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, well, so since we would do 2 of those, and then at the same time we're working on a lot of other shows, you know. So doing OVAs and everything is kind of all mingled in together. So we would do, say, 2 episodes of Evangelion, and then we'd do, 1 episode of Golden Boy, or we do like 1 episode, like Plastic Little, or whatever. So all of these things were like being intermingled together. That being said, so I was in the studio and I was aware that they were working on this new show, and I did not know, like, what is this show? Why am I not in it? What is happening with that? Because Asuka does not get introduced until the 8th episode. So obviously they were working on it for a while before I was in that. And I remember I was in the studio one day, and I think the engineer was like mixing it or something. And I said, well, what are you working on? What is that? What is this show? And he told me. And so I went and I marched right into Matt Greenfield's office, and I said, hey, so this new show, I want to be in that. Can I just do like can I just do like some background stuff or something? And he goes, no, you're in it. Your character is just not introduced yet. And I was like, well, can I just do some background stuff or something? No, you can't. And so he had a Gamera figure, and it was up on this filing cabinet, and Gamera, on either side of him, there was a Rei and there was an Asuka in their plug suits. And he points to the Asuka figure and he said, you see that girl in the red right there? That's you. That's your character right there. And so you can't do anything else until she's introduced. And I was like, well, fine. And I'm thinking, she must not be a very important character if she hasn't even been introduced into the show yet. And as somebody pointed out one time when I was telling this story, they were like, wait, so you went in to the director and demanded to be an Evangelion? It's like, that's such an Asuka thing to do.
It really is. Like, to be fair, it really is.
It really is. So, unbeknownst to me, because I didn't even know that they had the auditions for it. I wasn't even aware of that because I didn't go. And they used to do this thing at ADV, like on, I think, every Friday night or most Friday nights or whatever. They would do these pizza parties at the office for the people who actually work there. I mean, the voice actors do not work at the company. That's like, there's the marketing people and HR or whoever, like people who work in a company. And they would buy pizza and they would screen new episodes of upcoming shows that ADV was going to release. They were new shows that they had licensed. And so they had been showing episodes to people who worked there. And all these people kept coming into Matt's office and they were like, okay, so Tiffany is Asuka, right?
Oh, man.
So, like I say, I think my audition to play Asuka was really kind of based on my prior work, like Chigako and Devil Hunter Yoko, and particularly Kome Sawaguchi and Blue Seed. I think it was very, very influenced by that for sure. And anyway, so that's really the story of Asuka. That is how that all happened. And when I finally got to meet Yuko Miyamura, who is, of course, the original Asuka, when I first met her, and I was so excited to meet her, I nearly passed out. I was hyperventilating. And I met her, and I think really within about 5 minutes of us meeting, she said, oh, I see why they cast you to play Asuka.
Oh, man.
I'm not sure if that's a compliment or not, but
anyway,
yeah.
you take it as a compliment. Be like, yeah, it's my personality.
Sure. Yeah, I'm spunky.
Exactly. And you've been able to reprise your character, which doesn't happen all the time.
Yes, it does not. That's true. It does not. So, right, in subsequent iterations like Death and Rebirth and End of Evangelion, and then the rebuild movies, I did continue to play Asuka. Of course, I have nothing to do with the abomination that is on Netflix. That is
what the heck is that?
I don't know. I will tell you that is the one and only time I ever did audition to play Asuka. And one of the weirdest sentences that ever came out of my mouth was, "My name is Tiffany Grant, and I'm auditioning for the role of Asuka Langley Soryu." That was like, pardon me, but batshit crazy. Like, I couldn't believe those were even words coming out of my mouth. The one time I auditioned to play Asuka, I didn't get the part, so go figure.
You know, the one who's been playing this character for years.
Exactly.
Yeah, I haven't even, like, I know some people that have watched it, and, you know, everything online where it was all kind of weird, and, like, the stuff didn't make any sense. Like, they were trying to do, like, actual, like, translation issues, so it never makes any sense.
Yeah. You know, I like to say that if you put, you know, item A into your translatometer and you get out item B, it doesn't necessarily make any sense. But they got what they wanted, and so there you have it. I do not, by the way, I'm not trying to knock the actors for their...
Oh, no. Definitely not them.
I'm not, because
they
had
what they had to work with.
I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
Uh-huh. Absolutely.
I would play Asuka.
Absolutely. But anyway,
shoot.
Just getting... Why not?
I want to be a spunky redhead, right?
Of course. I've in the last several months, I have had people ask me, it's like, so was that you? Did you work? I was like, oh, God, that was not me. No, that was not me. I did not have anything to do with that. And I'm glad, because honestly, if they had cast me in it, I would have had to say that those terrible scripts. Yes, I would have had to say that stuff. I would have had to call Shinji a children.
Yeah, that wasn't this, like... I get that you're going for, you know, like, authenticity to the source material, but it's also like English vernacular doesn't work here. Like, we wouldn't say you're the first children. That doesn't make any sense.
It does not make any sense. Yes, it is in fact a grammatical error. It is not canon, as I've heard somebody try to argue. No, it's just an error, and we don't have to repeat it because we're fluent in English. I can English, so
I agree.
Therefore, no.
In fact, let's not even talk about that Netflix thing. It's out of our minds. Let's go.
Let's move on.
Let's move on. Like, let's kind of move on here. So you are doing a lot of conventions, and that's where we kind of met briefly, was at Anime Weekend Atlanta. Is that something that you're really, really into, is going to these conventions, meeting the fans?
I love it. Yes, I do. I do love the conventions. And I will just tell you, I'm an obsessive list keeper. So I am therefore able to tell you that I have been a guest at 277 conventions in the last 22
that's awesome.
years. So yeah, I've done conventions in 46 of the U.S. states and the District of Columbia. So the only places in the U.S. that are still on my wish list, and hello, I'm talking to you, Montana, Wyoming, Delaware, and Rhode Island. So those are the 4. 2 states that are very tiny, and 2 states that are quite very large but don't have a lot of people in them. But anyway, they do all, as far as I have checked, have some type of convention in them, so I'm ready. Invite me. I'll come. I'm a great guest.
Definitely.
I'm ready to do it.
Yes.
And I've done conventions in Canada and in the Republic of Ireland, Northern Ireland, England, several of the states in Australia, and also in New Zealand. So I've been around.
You are well traveled.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man.
Indeed.
So we did kind of gloss over Asuka because we did have Patrea Burchard on here, who voiced Ryoko in Tenchi Muyo, so very popular. Yes. I mean, she like still gets people from conventions coming up and talking to her about Ryoko. So, and you still have people coming up and talking about Asuka.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's definitely the number one thing that people want to talk to me about, far and away. I just did a convention this past weekend, Anime Y, which was in Fort Lauderdale. And yeah, that's really, I would say at conventions, the thing that people want to talk to me the most about is far and away Asuka. And that's probably 70 to 80% of what people want to talk to me about. I mean, there's a lot of other stuff that I've done, and they do talk to me about these other things too, like Golden Boy is still a big one, cult favorite, Infinite Stratos for sure, a lot of One Piece fans, Full Metal Alchemist, but yeah, it's Asuka, and some other stuff.
And you did, what I was going to ask was, like, did you ever think, I mean, what like, back in the day, you see a figure sitting on the director's shelf.
Right.
Ever think that this was going to explode and be like, this is going to be a character that I will play for years and years to come?
No. And there's absolutely no way to know something like that. You know, I had no idea when I was playing this character, like, this is the thing that I'm going to be known for. This is something that's going to follow me around for decades for the rest of my life, which I'm not saying that in a negative way. I think it's fantastic. But I had absolutely no way of knowing that what a phenomenon Evangelion was going to be. I did not know. I absolutely did not know. It's been a blessing, really, that I got to be part of something like that. It's pretty incredible and sometimes a little bit surreal, I'm not going to lie. But it's been great being able to be associated with something like that for such a long time.
And there are more of the rebuilds coming out, so hopefully we will get to see you again in the rebuilds.
I hope so. I have no idea. There is supposedly one that's coming out. I mean, the original proposal was that there were going to be 4 of them, and the 4th one is supposed to come out at some point in 2020. I have no idea when. I mean, it certainly is not finished at this point, at least as far as I know. There certainly hasn't been any indication of that, so I don't know when it would come out in Japan or when it would come out here, and I certainly have no control over whether I'm in it or not. I don't personally have any expectation that I'll ever play Asuka again. I figure if they didn't want me to be in their new dub, then why would anybody ever want us ever? Why would they, if that's all Studio Kara and they have they own Evangelion and they can do with it whatever they want, I don't know why they would want us again. I mean, I'm ready to do it. I would like to do it, but I certainly don't have any expectations that I will.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, I'm just being honest with you. People don't like it for me to say that, but I'm just speaking the truth. I don't think it's going to happen.
See, and that's really sad.
I know.
But
I mean, I don't sound sad when I'm saying it. It's more like I've just finally come to that stage of acceptance. Believe me, I had a lot of grief and a lot of denial and a lot of rage and all of those stages of everything. But that's been, a year ago for me now. Yeah.
Do you have any projects upcoming that I know you mentioned a video game that that you're looking forward to? Any other projects or anything that you'd like to promote or that you can talk about?
Yeah. The most recent anime that I worked on was actually a One Piece film that came out, I think, late September, and I reprised my role of Nojiko, which is Nami's sister, and that was a One Piece episode of East Blue. And essentially what it is it's like a rehash of the first, I don't know what it is, like 20 or 30 or something episodes of the TV series. So I got to do that, and it was kind of me doing a lot of the same stuff that I did when I was first doing Nojiko back. When was that? Like 2008. So it was a while ago.
Yeah. Well, that's what happens when you have a show that goes on for 600 episodes.
I think it's up over 900.
Is it? Oh, geez.
Yeah. It'll be going until, I don't know, the apocalypse maybe.
Yeah.
One different project that I worked on and actually came out this summer But I worked on a visual novel, so that was a new thing. It's called Akash, 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 Path of the Five. And I'm so bad I can't remember what game system it's available. It's on a couple of the game systems. And I was just a supporting role. I played a little boy called Josiah. But so it's just a different thing that I did. And this video game that I worked on, it looks really, really cool. And like I said, it is called Once Upon a Coma. And the creator, Thomas Brush, he's based in South Carolina, and he's just an independent game developer. And his last game was called Pinstripe, and it was really got a lot of like awards and critical acclaim. And it looks like the same is going to be true for Once Upon a Coma. It has a really cool. It has very much kind of a Tim Burton kind of a vibe.
Okay.
With the art style. It's pretty neat. And I played one of the main characters in that, Gomboisa, who's about a 10-year-old boy, and I played his little brother, who is Gom Toddler. So that was really fun. I enjoyed that a lot. And also recently did a couple of characters in a game called Heroes of New Earth. Last year I worked on Warframe Fortuna. I think it actually didn't come out maybe until it was late last year or early this year when that came out.
Okay.
And I play a little sheep girl in a game called, her name is Nimora, and it's a game called AFK Arena. And I got to do a little special thing for Halloween when, just this past Halloween, where she was like possessed by an evil spirit. And so that was pretty fun.
Nice.
But I've gotten to do a little bit more video games recently. Oh, and also this year I worked on a mod for World of Warships, and it's called Mermaid's Wrath. And it's like, well, what if all of the famous admirals and commanders and so forth from World War II, what if they were ladies? So it's that.
Oh, nice.
Mm-hmm.
Any conventions or anything upcoming?
Oh, yes. Thank you for mentioning that. I've got this coming January, I'm going to be at Ichiban Con in Charlotte, North Carolina, and it's a 4-day convention. It's January 9th through the 12th. And then in March, I will be at Agama Con, which is in Aiken, South Carolina. And it's very near Augusta, Georgia. And then in April, I'm going to be at Tiger Con, which is down in South Georgia in Valdosta.
I was thinking Nebraska.
Mm-hmm. No.
I don't know why. Like, just like you said, Tiger Con, and I was like, Nebraska.
No, it's Tiger Con. It's actually the guys who run it are affiliated with the Air Force base down there. They're all Air Force guys.
Okay.
So that is the genesis of the name there. They're not. The convention is a private organization that is, I have to read the disclaimer on their website, not part of the Department of Defense or any of its components, and has no governmental status, but it is right next to the Air Force base.
Gotcha.
So it's like I think it's like the Flying Tigers is the squadron there or something. Anyway, I'm not an Air Force expert, so sorry. Yes.
Nice. And what about social media wise?
Okay. Well, I am not a big social media person. I don't do the tweeting because Twitter is bad and scary and toxic. But I do have a Facebook group that I actually participate in. It is the Tiffany Grant fan club, and I do correspond with people there, and I post things there, and I chat with people there. So that is the best place for people to contact me, either Tiffany Grant Fan Club, or I have a website. You can go to either tiffanygrant.net or tiffanygrant.com. They will both get you to me, and you can email me through my website, and I actually will answer your email. Shocking, but that's a real thing. Yeah, it's Moody. It's Moody Air Force Base.
Moody, okay.
Moody Air Force Base in Valdosta. So
nice. And we'll put the link to your Facebook group and to your website in our show notes as well. So that way, if anybody wants to listen to, click on it, chat with you, they can just pull it up. There you go.
That is fabbity-doo-dah.
Tiffany, thanks so much for coming on.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much for inviting me. It was really a pleasure.
Oh, no problem. And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Josh L. Kane. You can find the podcast on Instagram at Animation Station Podcast, Twitter at Animate Podcast. All of our episodes are available iTunes, Stitcher, Podbean, Google Play, YouTube, and on our website, animationstationpodcast.com. Again, Tiffany, thank you so much for coming on, and you'll always be our Oscar.
Thank you.
No problem. So for the Animation Station Podcast, I am Josh.
Oh, and I'm Tiffany.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.